pained me so much. I had such a roller coaster ride with my experience of this game in general. Welcome and welcome back, everybody. T here, and as you already saw in the title, here are 5 more disappointing games. No disrespect towards anybody whatsoever. Hopefully it will be informative and helpful, because whether or not you agree with me, I'm going to be trying my best to provide some of the things about this game that I didn't enjoy, even if you may enjoy them yourself, as well as some alternative games that you may like. So without further ado, let's get started. First up on this list of disappointing games is a game that, albeit is not a bad game, it's just one that I didn't really enjoy and really wanted to based on the art and aesthetic and theme of the game, and that is Tokaido. This is a game about sightseeing in Japan where you'll be moving your meeples down a path in order to collect different cards to make a landscape, money to purchase souvenirs. Overall, it seems like a really cool game. It's got absolutely gorgeous presentation, great components. I know this is a favorite of a lot of people, but for me, it just felt very straightforward and very basic. Now, again, those are not knocks against the design or a bad thing. It's just a personal preference that I wanted there to be a little bit more going on. And I think part of the issue is that not that I crave heavy games, it's just that for the amount of different things you could collect, the main mechanic of just moving down felt very basic. And if there was a lot of different avenues you could have gone down, it would have felt cool to have them feel more distinguished from one another in terms of what you do when you get there, versus just moving your meeple down, collecting something that gives you points, collecting something else that gives you points. Oh, if I get another one of these things, that doubles those points. And I think for me, it was a weird in-between of, if it was that streamlined and clean, it would be cool to just be like some sort of little card game, or if there was that much going on, then I would like a little bit more interaction with the different items, or a little bit more tension with blocking people out in terms of where you go along the path. Overall, I would say I have 2 main games that come to mind as alternatives, one of them being Parks. This one, too, is very light, very similar premise of moving your meeples down a path in order to collect resources, which they will then trade in for little different photographs or cards of the different places and national parks that you've visited. However, I think the reason why this particular game works a little bit more for me is because, again, when you move to a spot, you're getting resources that you can then trade in. It feels like I'm kind of working towards something and building sets of resources versus just like accumulating a lot of money to get points or just getting a card straight away. I think the balance there for me was a little bit more approachable and easier to teach to a bigger group of people, even if it was just marginally so. I would say the game that I really love and want to recommend, even though it's very different in terms of its mechanics, but has similar gorgeous art, similar theme, similar kind of weightiness to the game, is Takenoko. This is such a beauty from Antoine Bauza, and it has such stunning presentation on the table. So if that's what you loved about Tokaido, you should definitely check out Takenoko. This is a game where you're going to be going around and basically growing a collective bamboo field, which you'll then move a panda around to eat the bamboo. You can score points through eating bamboo and trading it in. You can score points through getting bamboo of certain various aesthetic heights around the board. And you can also get points based on the actual plots of land that go out to fill the map and the arrangements of them. This game I find to be a lot more strategic, a lot more engaging, but again, with a similar art and theme. And even though they're not the same mechanically, I think if you enjoy this kind of universe and overall feel of the game, but want it with a little bit more strategy, then you may also really enjoy Takenoko. Next up on the list is a game that is very classic, and to be fair, when I first played it, the only time I've played it, right before we whipped the game out, I was really excited because I thought, man, I finally get to experience this and see what everybody's talking about. And right as the box lid opened, my friend George goes, "Tia, you're gonna hate this game," and that is Cosmic Encounter. I don't know what I was expecting. I thought that it would be more strategic, more heavy, but this is really a party game. And, you know, knock on me for thinking it might be anything else. I think just based on the art, the aesthetic, the box size, people that I met that really enjoy this game, it was not what I was expecting. So I was ready for, you know, hardcore negotiation, 4X kind of space gamey type of thing, combat heavy, but this game did have some of those elements, but in the most random way. So essentially, you have your little planets that you're placing out and trying to destroy each other's, and you can form, like, you can negotiate with other players, but there's like random card draws. It just sticks in my mind so vividly that I should have, that under all circumstances, there was a combat point where I should have won, and then we flipped over the random cards, and the scale was from like 2 to 40. And my brain was like, what? There's even a card that goes that high? Because most of them are in a middle range, but every now and then you get just like a random one. It makes for a great story. It makes for a fun party game, but in terms of strategy and what have you, I mean, I haven't delved into it much, so maybe there is, but oh, from a first play, that is not what I got. And that was not what I was expecting. It is not what I personally enjoy. It was not a mindset I was prepared for. And so when I played it, I had a very emotional response to it. And, you know, under the right circumstances, I could be persuaded to play this game again. However, it really just didn't do it for me. In terms of other party style games where you're kind of going head to head to wear your other opponents down with some negotiation, I'll be honest, I don't know that I have a really solid replacement for this game. So for that reason alone, if you like the sound of it, great. But if you are like me and don't like completely random card draws that completely throw the game, then this one probably isn't for you. This is definitely one I'm going to rely on some of y'all to leave some comments down below, since this is not my style of game whatsoever. If there are other games similar to Cosmic Encounter that you've enjoyed, please share them with us and spread your board game wisdom and knowledge. I'll pin a couple of them down there so y'all can check those out after the video goes up. But for me, I was not prepared. Shame on me, but Cosmic Encounter for me was not what I was expecting and not a pleasant time. The next game on this list is a puzzly 2-player game, and that is Patchwork from designer Uwe Rosenberg. I know that this is a favorite. They have a million different versions of it, but I am so over Patchwork. Part of it is the fact that I'm just over this game. Just hearing about it everywhere, and it's like, you know, it's great if you enjoy it, if you want to get into it, it's fine. I like the basic mechanics of the game and the idea of it, where you are going to be drafting these pieces to fill up your board and create a patchwork quilt. I like the time mechanic of whoever, if you take a large piece, then you're going to move your piece farther down and it'll be longer before you can have another turn. So there's some interesting decisions there. Overall, there are so many elements with this game that I should really like. It's simple, it's clean, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't really click with me. I think part of the problem is that oftentimes when I've played, there is a bonus for getting a 7x7 square, and I'm sure that there are other strategies around it, but it seems like whoever gets that 7x7 square, usually more often than not, is going to be the winner. And again, this could totally just be, I'm not a huge fan of this game because I'm bad at it. Like, believe it or not, we're all human, and that does play a factor in how much you enjoy a game. But part of the other reason why this game doesn't shine as much for me is because I've since found games in a similar vein that I really do enjoy quite a lot more than Patchwork. One of those games is Nova Luna, also by Uwe Rosenberg. Now, this one does not have these polyomino style pieces, but it utilizes the same time track mechanic, moving around to collect different square tiles that will have objectives on them. So as you place your tiles into your grid and they form different combinations of colors and shapes, you are going to then complete those objectives, and it's a race to see who can get that many of those. So it's a really cool patterning game with some spatial reasoning and a little bit of almost like, I don't want to say engine building, but like objective engine building, if that makes sense. It's just a lot more satisfying for me personally than Patchwork is, and it plays up to 4, which I think is a really cool bonus. Now, if you are really tied to those polyomino style pieces, there are plenty of games out there that do it really, really well. 3 of my favorites that come to mind are from Phil Walker Harding, and those would be Barren Park, Llama Land, and honorary mention Gingerbread House, even though that doesn't have polyominoes, but these are all tiling, stacking games with some different elements. There's a little bit more going on, and it kind of takes some of those similar mechanics with the spatial reasoning, but has a lot more flavor and a lot more gameplay to them. So they are quite heavier than Patchwork, though they are not heavy, hefty games by any means. They could be a great next step if you find yourself really enjoying Patchwork and wanting to move on and kind of upgrade to something a little bit more involved. Next up on the list is a game that was recommended to me by so many different people, and I was really excited to finally be able to get to try it, and that is Herbaceous Sprouts. Both Herbaceous and Herbaceous Sprouts I've heard such good things about. I do love the art. I do love Steve Finn's games, and Herbaceous Sprouts is kind of the sequel-ish to Herbaceous, which is a small card game. Herbaceous Sprouts is a set collection game that also introduces dice that you are going to be utilizing to get different tools and and to place different flowers out into a garden to score points. I had heard that Herbaceous Sprouts was a lot heftier than Herbaceous, and though I do really like card games, I thought maybe in this instance I would like to have a little bit more going on. When I played the game though, not going to lie, I felt like, wait, if this is the hefty version, is Herbaceous just an empty box? Like, I was so confused. And again, the aesthetic of the game is great. I think this is amazing for some people if you just want to completely turn your brain off and just have the game kind of unfold in front of you. But I didn't feel like I had any major decisions to be made in the game. I felt like based on the die rolls that I got, it was very clear whether I needed to re-roll or not, very clear which types of flowers I needed to go for or which types of tools I needed to get. And it just felt very unfulfilling in terms of my involvement in the game and how it played out. I would say if you feel similar to me, where you wanted something more hefty happening and going on, Genotype, it's a little bit to get into, but it has the same kind of feel, the same atmosphere, the same overall idea of rolling dice and attributing them to get certain types of, in this case, not just flowers planted, but different peas and flowers and things like that. There's a lot more going on here. So again, I'm not saying that it's a direct comparison or a replacement for it. I'm saying that if you want something chunkier, where you feel like the decisions you make from turn to turn matter and you actually have to pause and think about what you're going to do next, then I would definitely recommend checking out Genotype. And last but not least is a game that, it pained me so much. I had such a roller coaster ride with my experience of this game in general, and that is Black Rose Wars. So this was a Kickstarter game from 2019 that originally I was on the fence about. Once I learned more about it, the Kickstarter was already closed, and I was crying myself to sleep, kicking myself, so upset. This is a game where you are going to be players in an arena using arcane magic and different deck building to get particular cards from different schools of magic, damaging each other, damaging rooms, zooming around the board, evoking different creatures that you can summon, and it just seemed like such a cool concept and such an amazing idea. The art, the theme, the minis, all of it, I was like, ooh, do I dare say it? This game is sexy, hello. But upon my heartbreak of realizing that I missed the pledge, some months later, I found somebody locally who is selling their entire pledge for a pretty reasonable price. So I jumped on that right quick. I got it home. I was so excited to play it. Even though the rulebook was a mess, I watched videos, I printed out player aids, I got ready to teach it. I taught it, we played it, and I thought, are we doing something wrong? I was told that there was deck building happening. But each time you got new cards, they pretty much just went out of your deck. There was no synergy between cards either. You didn't use like things on cards to get more cards. It was like you just do these actions and then you damage them and then you kind of toss it away. And I guess maybe they could cycle back in, but it did not have a very compelling deck building feel like some amazing deck builders do. In addition to that, it seemed like some of the schools were more broken, were just objectively better than others. Even if you weren't going for a certain build, I felt like, well, I must have to do that. And again, I'm not an expert on this game. Maybe there's some deeper long-term strategy there, but if there was, I didn't see it. Nobody that I was sitting with at the table saw any conceivable way that, you know, there was like certain decks were better to get cards from. And the coolest part of this game that I was so excited for were the evocations, where you could summon different creatures, and it felt like a one-time in thing where it's like I could just do damage to you directly, or I could summon this thing that would then do damage to you, probably about the same, more or less, and then you'll kill it in a round or two. And it's not like I'm controlling a bunch of minions out on the board. It's just like a replacement for the thing I would have done on my turn anyway. Major bummer. I don't know, maybe I'm just missing, and I still to this day, even after multiple other plays, because I so badly wanted to love this game, I still felt like I was doing something wrong, and maybe I was, but the number of times I went back and checked to make sure, like, yeah, this is legit how it goes, this is legit how it goes, okay. It was just, I mean, like, every day my heart was breaking because I wanted so badly to love this game for the different elements that it promised, as well as the theme, the art, and the universe. Just, it was such a huge letdown. So my definite recommendation, if you're looking for an arena style PvP type of game, would definitely be Adrenaline. This game has very streamlined rules, way easier to teach and get into, and it feels like you do have a lot of decisions on your turn and can go a lot of different routes. One of the things that I particularly love about Adrenaline is the different weapons cards, which really can help you change up your strategy from play to play. And overall, it's not fussy. There's not too much that you have to deal with outside of those cards, a few special ability cards, and your ammo itself. And one of the reasons why I was so excited for Black Rose Wars in the beginning was because I had heard people say it's like a better version of Adrenaline. And in my mind, I already loved Adrenaline, and I thought, oh, a better version? And yes, I do like dark high fantasy. Thank you very much. I'm so excited, and it just completely fell flat for me. So unfortunately, Black Rose Wars was one that, after a long, arduous task of getting it to the table, I had to let go of. So there you have it, 5 more games that did not do it for me. I'm sure you already have, but let me know in the comments down below if you agree or not. And if you have any other insights for these games or recommendations, feel free to subscribe down below, click the like button, turn on notifications with the little bell so that you get notified anytime a new video comes out. Much appreciated. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh,